you were saying that you might not have too much time because we started a little late, but please, so we won't waste too much time. About yourself, about the symposium, about the topic. It's your show. I'm just sitting, listening to you. Bring me in if you want me to come in, please.
As I have sent you my information, I am a mediator and I have been a social worker. And I have been into different projects some 15 years ago, and then moved into mediation. And this is what I do full time. My interest is specifically, my focus is mainly for family, but I do community mediations and other workplace mediation. But at the present time, it's mainly family. And I am with MBBI, Mediation Beyond Borders, and try to see if I can get into something more. But at the present time, it's only mediation, and that's it. And nothing much. Yeah, I specialize in domestic violence training, particularly violence against women, and take part in training and symposium. Other than that, yeah, that's all from me.
Sociology background, you want to talk about that?
I have masters in sociology, which I've done it from University of Hyderabad in India. And then after completing that, I got into different projects, like projects on child labor, empowerment for women in India. Then later I moved to Canada. So after moving, I got into mediation. Yeah, just that's what it is.
So Preeti, now colonization, decolonization, and mediation. That's where we are going. Please.
It's a very interesting topic, colonization and decolonization. At the same time, it's a very broad topic. And when we talk about colonization, there are so many things that come into it. And the damage it has done on the countries that it had colonized. And that created something like, sorry, the phone is just going off.
No issue at all.
Okay, I lost my chain of thoughts.
Basically, colonization did a lot of damage. But
it did a lot of damage. It's created so many things that we're still feeling it. Whether it's Canada, India, or any other place. So unless we recognize what colonization has done, it'll be hard for anyone to decolonize it. So that's my take on colonization. Would it be better if there's some question answer interactive rather than me going off?
Anything.
I don't know what to say, what to add to this.
But then basically it's your time, however you want. If you want, we can have a discussion. Because look, I think why I focused on mediation part of it is because what needed to be brought out is that in countries that were colonized, in the colonial times, how was dispute resolution done? If mediation was part of that, then what happened to that with becoming colonized? And then as we moved along and we said we became independent, but did that decolonization phase, did it really look at dispute resolution differently? First of all, or you just picked up where the colonizer left, those structures that the colonizer left, and the whole colonized mindset that you had, did you bring it in relation to dispute resolution and specifically mediation, how that has moved? So that is the broad thing that I wanted to cover here, because the whole idea being, I had broken it up first. There was a symposium on indigenous peoples and mediation. So there was an idea that we should bring something out on the pre-colonial times, what was happening there, and then take it from there. But because there is an overlap, so if here also I want people to talk about if they have something in their countries which was happening, even if they know about it. But what has happened is that with colonization, the traditional methods and the way that people approach
got
resolution
lost.
in general got lost. They don't even know
Yes,
about it, and they think the
yes,
structure that they see now or they hear about was the structure before that. No, the actually structures were different. So those are the kind of things we
exactly,
want to bring in here.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. So colonization made a huge impact, a mainly negative impact on the colonies they were ruling on. We did have, well, historically, I can speak only of India and Canada. I presume you already know about India. So I don't know how much I can say on that. Um, Historically, there have been ways of settling the matter, especially here. I hear from the indigenous communities. They have something called a circle mediation, which we use it now as circle mediation to settle any kind of conflict that is there, whether it's family, whether it's community, or anything else. So it has been there, but the thing what's going on right now, what I see it as, we operate within the structures that are created by the colonizers. We operate within those structures, and try to bring in the traditional way of doing it, which somehow may not be working, in my opinion. There is a conflict in bringing that. Either you use the colonial way of doing it, or you don't use it at all. So what's happening is we are all ending up being using the present day colonial system, and the difficulty in not changing that. What I think is the colonial mindset of people, and to change that, that needs to change. That needs to be decolonized. So unless we recognize as professionals, yeah, that is our mindset, and this is because of colonization. So to bring that change, we have to decolonize ourselves first. So we have to unlearn that behavior and then start something new, and then we can lean back on our traditional background to bring that change. And I feel that's not going to happen immediately. It'll take time. It'll take a long time for the people to accept that they are what they are, and then to bring a change. So that's my take on it as a mediator. I see a lot, especially when I'm working with um, violence against women. I see that a lot, the impact it has had on the minds of the people, and then the approach we adopt to heal them is very different from any traditional approach with any community would like to do it. So we are working here. We're working hard here to get something that can be helpful to our clients based on their culture and ethnicity that they come from. But it's not a very smooth road to get there. So yeah, that's my take on colonization and mediation. I'm not talking as mediation. I'm talking as a professional that anybody would face in situations like that.
Well, the whole idea of having this discussion was that, like you said, that the colonized mindset that has developed now, to be able to get out of it in relation to mediation and developing mediation? What do you think are steps that should be taken, and how can we take mediation forward, looking at this aspect of this whole colonization and the colonized mindset that people have? How would you look at to because finally promoting mediation is what we need to do. So how do you look at what steps should be taken? How can we change this aspect?
Well, it's a responsibility of as professionals to do that. So we can start off what I think as something called reflective practices, where when we get into something, and then we look back as to what we could have done differently, and then try to change at every step. So bringing in that, we can help with our practices, um, and bring about that change, and also uh, I'm sorry, I'm drawing blank. Like I said, my day started very, very,
Have
very
you
badly. So
what happened?
yeah.
I mean,
Well, no, you're just recording the session. So
okay, okay. If you got
there was a case, a difficult case. So that's why.
okay. But
Yeah.
you want to take a
I'm
break? You
sorry
want to
about.
take a break? You want to drink something,
I,
eat something? Then
I,
not a problem at all. We can. Yeah. I mean, you can come back. I mean, the recording goes on. If we can, you can take a break, come back. Not a problem at all. If you want to.
sure, sure. We can take a break for 5 minutes. You can have something. I think would be good
Only
for
thing
you.
because it's going live, so I will. I mean, I will have to. What I can do is, you take a break. I'll just put my website there. I'll take people through the website. So
No,
don't worry.
let's continue. That's fine. Let's continue.
Sure, sure, because that's not a problem. So, so I'll tell you the whole. I mean, the idea of like I said, the having this discussion is that even legislation and the way mediation is today looked at by people, it's still coming a lot through the court system. That's one, and the
It is
legislation also. I feel it's a colonized way of looking at mediation still. So I don't know what your thoughts on that.
absolutely.
Hmm.
Yeah. So for that, we need to change the laws itself. The laws itself are coming down from the colonized structure. There are a lot of laws that have not changed in years. So unless that has changed, we cannot bring in the change in our practices. It's hard to bring a change in the practices when the laws that we are dealing with are still the same. So, in order to do that, we do, like I said, we need to start out with reflective practices, and then to work with different, not as silos of profession, but as interconnected with agencies that are doing the similar kind of job. So, when we are interconnecting with each other, we are able to then share what what we are trying to change, bring the change, so that the other person can follow up with that. Unless we work together with interconnectedness with other agencies, other platforms, to bring about the change would be difficult. So that needs to be done. So the first thing is to recognize colonization. Second thing is to decolonize it after recognizing it. And what are the ways you can decolonize it?
Yeah.
So you have to first see what you're doing, the practices that we have adopted and we are following, and then reflect on it to bring that change, to bring that conscious change. And that you cannot work alone in your own field. You have to work in connection with the other organizations, because each thing, whatever we are doing, it's all interconnected. And unless we bring about that change, uh, and connect with other agencies, this is going to be a hard task. And I'm glad that we have opened this conversation. It's a beginning to have that conversation and bring this change in our lives.
Yeah. But I think
So yeah, go ahead.
at the same time, also because being a sociology student and all, how do we change that whole colonized mindset. But that, I think, is the first a place where issues start from, and we'll discuss that part. But how do you change that?
I totally agree. Yeah, I totally agree. Um, uh, it, people don't realize they have internalized that colonial mindset. They don't realize unless when you realize, then only you bring a change. So, like for example, um, when I talk to somebody, a client, let's say a client, and you're trying to tell them something from the place of knowledge, like this is what is to be done. I did come across a lot of times people don't believe you, maybe because the color of your skin or where you come from. But if the same thing a white person says is taken as an authoritative, it's taken as it's accepted, and because it's coming from an authoritative person, and that's a colonial mindset. A white person saying a thing is coming from an authority, and if a colored person is doing it, they may not know anything. So that is what the colonial mindset is, and it can only come in as a sociologist. If I see it, it can only be brought about um, within the change of our own education system. The education system that we have today, even in India, it's the same that has been passed on from the colonial times. There's hardly any change. From the time I got educated and I see the youngsters getting educated now, there's hardly any change. So unless that whole thing is changed from a macro level to the micro level, the change of changing the colonial mindset will take time.
I think
The thing,
yeah, please, go ahead.
yeah, the thing they have to realize, I mean, your timing is very good though. Your timing for having this topic is really very good. The Queen passed away last week.
But the
So
symposium was planned before that. Okay, so I'll tell you
yeah, so
timing. I'll
still
tell you
the
about timing, Preeti. I'll tell you about timing. I had a session on that the symposium on indigenous peoples and mediation. The timing was when the Pope was visiting Canada.
your timing is very good. So yeah, so the Queen passed away. So the discussions have come up now. Why should we have monarchy? Why should we still have her as our head of the state? Why can't we change that? And I was watching these interviews where people are like, it was really shocking. Like in this day, still today, people can talk like that. People are saying she maintained the stability. And I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, where do you live? Do you live in the real world or not? You don't know what she was doing. So that is the type of people we are dealing with. So when they don't even know what's going on, and then to bring that change, it's a long task ahead. And it's not that it's impossible, it's just that it's upon us professional to lead it forward. So when I saw your topic, that's when I commented as to where this is going to lead. What are you trying to achieve in having these symposium? I have seen in the past, I didn't respond to it, but you have been doing a lot of other discussions on different topics. So what do you plan to achieve with that?
So what I'll do is I'll start the chain as to how I started. I mean, in terms of my shows and events, it started off with a show called Evolution of a Mediator. The idea
Mhm.
being that I keep saying, and you'll hear me a lot if you watch my shows, that mediators are not made in 40-hour factories. That's what I
No.
keep saying. So for that, I had to bring out people like we started with Ken Cloke, that his life, his growing up, his family, his value system, everything makes him who he is. If he's the mediator he is because of all that. Don't demean a mediator by saying we'll make you a mediator in a 40-hour program. I think you demeaning mediators, and you are devaluing mediators and mediation by doing that. So that was why that show started. So that's one show. Then there's another show called In Conversation with a Beautiful Mind. The idea being that, I mean, when I speak to people about mediation, some people tell me, oh, I did not have a face to a mediator. Now I have a face to a mediator. So I said, let's put mediators out. Let people, at least the wonderful people they are, the kind of, I mean, what they bring in is they're special. So let's put them out. So that was In Conversation with a Beautiful Mind. Then I had a symposium last year, which was Mediation in Our Culture and Traditions. The idea being that people might not be familiar with the word mediation, but they're familiar with the process. So let's connect them with the process. If we want to develop mediation, that's what has to happen. So let's do that. So that was the idea behind that. So people from, there were 97 speakers from 45 countries in that, and someone called it the Woodstock of mediation. So that was that. Then from there was there's a show called Mediator Experiences, where mediators are talking about their memorable experiences in the mediation world, that started with Weinstein Jams Fellows. So basically, they were covered in the initial ones. Then there was a symposium on heart, soul, spirituality, and mediation, because I feel that those are areas that are not touched when people are like trained. I don't like the trained concept, but trained on mediation. These elements that don't even fit into that, and which for me is a very important part, the energy that a mediator brings in, or the energy in a mediation in general, all those things. So I said, let's talk about that. So that was that symposium. Then there was that World Mediators Conference, that let's talk about whatever topic you want to talk about. So there were some 93 sessions in that on various topics. So people picked the topic and we spoke about those topics. Then indigenous people, in a way, it's a subset of that mediation in our culture and traditions. Let's concentrate on, in this on that symposium, only indigenous peoples, and let's see what was happening there, and the positive part of it as to this is how disputes were resolved. So breaking it up from colonization and decolonization because of the negative aspect of this. So the positives there, and how those positives were destroyed by the colonizer process, and how today we have continued in the decolonization process. Have we really decolonized? I mean, these are my thoughts behind it, but I don't want to take discussions into any direction. It's an open thing. Let's bring out everything, so that next year when we have mediation in our culture and traditions, that symposium, we'll have thoughts on a much larger level, because we've initiated the discussion as to what, because question is, what are you really, what are we really talking about? Thoughts will come in, and then, so that should be a much larger thing. There were almost 100 speakers in the last one. That one, I'm saying, let's look at 300. Let's see how it happens there. And that's basically the chain of things. There've been some other discussions I've had on various things. So, but if you go to mediatorvikram.com, you'll find it's like an index. I put it out in that way, so you there's lots there. So now there are more than 400 videos out there, and each video is a minimum of 1 hour, and it goes to 1.5, 2, 3, 4 hours
Mhm,
also. So
mhm,
there's lots
mhm.
of content there. So that's one. So now the whole concentration is on developing the World Mediation Circle. So now I have enough content, people to watch. Let them do that. There will be things happening, but looking at it from the larger World Mediation Circle, creating mediation circles in every school, every community. So that's those steps is what I'm going to be working on. Let's put that together. Although there is something coming on the 30th of October, there's a discussion on ombuds as mediators and mediators as ombuds. Because I felt that within organizations, of course, they call them ombuds, but what is really the role and responsibility? Are they also I mean, their function, does it have a mediator function on it? That aspect of it. So, because adding another word into people's mind, mediator itself and mediation is not something which is popular in every part of the world. Canada, you're still doing
No.
it. It's not popular. So now you add another word while mediation itself is not happening. So can we look at the role of an ombuds? One part of it, is it mediation? So can you break it up? And the ombuds part of it, is it looking at conflict coaching and those part of it? Because the mediation skills are different. So if you are
Yes.
merging the two, then the function itself doesn't take off. Because ombuds has not taken off. I mean, I had a discussion in the World Mediators Conference on ombuds versus mediators. So it came out that in the last 50 years, the first ombuds was appointed in 50 years back in the US. Today also, it's not popular. So let's look at it why. Because I
Yeah.
still feel that an organizational mediator, because when I say mediation circles, when I say in every community, which means every organization also. So when I'm looking at developing a mediation circle there, those people with a mediator mindset have to be brought into that circle. But let's not confuse it with conflict coaching, because a lot of times it's getting merged there, which I what not something that I want. So those are the
No,
larger
it's
thing I've
very
given you.
different.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very different from conflict coaching. Uh, Mediation, a lot of times, what it has become now is basically there's a structure and you work within that structure. That's what it is, especially when it is code based mediation. You cannot do anything. You're dealing with people. You cannot work in that strict structure, strict lines, strict boxes. You cannot. When you're working with people, there are a lot of underlying issues that you have to go underneath and open that up and then open that discussion. And that cannot happen in 2 hours or 3 hours. It has to be few sessions down the road.
Yeah.
And that's what we are missing out.
And it has to
Uh,
be.
a few months ago, I was reading an article from a Japanese. He's actually some kind of martial arts thing, but he has taken that martial arts. It's called Haikido, I think, and changed it to settling it as bring it into mediation. And the way it is done, it is so beautiful. Although it's a martial art, but the way he has written, I was reading that article. I was so interested into it. In that article, the way they have changed the techniques of martial arts into conflict resolution through mediation, through conversation, using those techniques, how to bring it down, how to work with people using those techniques. It's so beautiful. So those are the things that have been lost because of colonization.
Absolutely.
I saw something on Japanese model. There must be so many other models from different countries who
So,
can bring into this and introduce it and talk about it
yeah,
and take it further along. And I see that and I miss that when I'm doing a mediation, especially if it's code based, because I know in my mind I can do a lot more with this family than I'm what I can do being in the court system. And I did mention it to one of the families. I said, this is the court system mediation. So I cannot go into details. I don't have the time. But it will be better if they talk to a mediator in a private setting and then they can go on. But people do not have time. They just want the result. So that is how our brain is programmed. You do this, this should be the result. So when you do that, it's hard to then go into a detailed conversation and be able to um, resolve the other issues that are with the conflict that they are in for mediation. So it is not just one straightforward thing of this is the conflict, resolve it. That's not how it works. There are other issues that you have to discuss it. Unless you discuss that, you cannot resolve the issue at hand because it'll keep coming back again and again. So
absolutely.
it's interesting. We need to. I would be interested to really look into any kind of research that we traditionally must have been doing, whether it is India or Canada or anywhere else.
Um, Well, there's a lot of interesting things people are doing in relation to that, and those things. I mean, look, people have discussed interesting things on various shows. Watch some of them. I mean, watch if you get time, because
Okay.
I know there is a lot of content, and to be able to watch everything might be difficult. But pick up some things. Pick up something that they've been. People are really doing interesting work, and globally,
Mm-hmm.
and it's nice to. I mean, just to hear that yes, someone has looked at it from this perspective and is working on that. So trying to, because basically that whole blind man and the elephant concept with mediation, That part of it we need to change, and the overall larger concept of mediation itself first to for people to get an idea of. Because like if there was a discussion today, let me talk about today's discussion. There was Beverly from Philippines, so she was saying mediation maybe can be used on basic community kind of things, but not on more complex things. Like she was
Okay.
talking about corporations and how communities are affected by mining, by large corporations, because resources and those are areas where of course communities are affected, where mining projects happen, say example. So I told her about how Luis Ore, who's in Peru, in this symposium, in the indigenous peoples and mediation symposium, he took us through a case study of how he has worked with there's a Canadian company mining project in Ecuador. He's from Peru,
Oh, I
and
know. Yeah, yeah, I'm aware of that.
so
Yeah,
he took
yeah,
us through the entire case study.
yeah,
So it
yeah.
can be done on complex things. I've done work
Absolutely,
on very complex high value matters. It works everywhere. It's just that this
absolutely.
initial thing that, oh, mediation cannot be done in these kind of things, we have to get over that first of all.
Yeah,
And that
I agree.
is that a colonized concept, colonization concept, that complex dispute resolution has to happen in courts and it can't happen outside that itself? And you spoke about the courts. I won't repeat it, but just before yours with the session with Banke, I mean, of course, this is something that people have heard a lot of times. I criticize that entire concept of mediation in courts, and I'm saying that's entire concept is a colonized way of looking at dispute resolution. Mediation should not be part of the court system. You're still putting in people's mind that dispute resolution happens in courts. So you've
Yeah,
introduced mediation as part of the court thing. How are you going to change that mindset? And of course,
exactly. Exactly. You're right. You're right. Because you're telling them in a way that we are the authority,
yes.
you are the subject, do as I tell you.
And
And that's a colonial mindset.
who's going to do it? We will tell you.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. I don't know how far we have come about in mediation India. I have no idea.
It's all going through the court system. That's the thing. That's the worst part that
Oh,
is
it
happening
is?
with mediation. That's
Okay.
the only way. Look, the point is at the end of the day. Again, I'm saying I'll repeat what I spoke to Banke about. The point is that a person comes into court. He is looking at litigation as their option. The court system is inefficient. In India, average time is 14 years. In Nigeria, she was from Nigeria. It could be, it's a little less. In Canada, might be less. But let's talk from the Indian perspective. So now, in a mediation, you are telling them that it will take 14 years. It might take more, and this will be your cost. So settle. So what have you done really? You made this person settle with a gun on their head. That's not settlement. That's, I mean, for them, that's not something that they're going to go back happy with. So mediation is not going to be something that they're going to talk to people about. How are they going to say good things about it? Oh, I had to settle because you know how much time it takes in courts.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that concept then doesn't help mediation at all. So I'm
Yeah.
saying that the court system is doing disservice to mediation in a big way, and then to mediators, not paying them
Yeah.
anything or almost next to
No.
nothing. What is the
Yeah.
message that you're sending? That
Yeah.
mediators are being valued. You're living in a society where everything is valued on money, but when you look at mediators, oh, this is what a mediator's worth, and there are
Yeah.
schedule of fees available in certain. I think we have a commercial courts act, and under that there is pre-institution mediation, so there's a schedule of fees. So you're telling people this is how mediators are valued. On the other end, a litigating lawyer can charge whatever they want. Then you have arbitrators charging what they want. You are saying that we want to, if there's a backlog in the courts, I'm saying go for, send them for mandatory arbitration and pay the arbitrator as much as you pay the mediator in the court. All the lawyers will be on strike and they'll stop the courts proceeding after that. It's just that mediators, they're doing it as a passion. And again, I was telling her about this, that mediators, senior mediators, say they feel very proud to say that we are doing it pro bono in courts. I have to distinguish between the two, between pro bono and free. Pro bono is for someone who can't afford it. You are giving it free to people who can afford it. And being at the stature that you are, you are actually in some way affecting the livelihood of someone who wants to do only mediation. You are a litigating lawyer in the court, and there is a there's a mediation center set up in the court, and you are feeling very nice and telling people, I'm doing it pro bono. But what is happening to the other person who actually would have got that mediation, and that would be their livelihood, and they would be able to follow their passion into something which gives them livelihood. So those are much larger things that we have to discuss it, I think.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that again brings us back to the question of colonization and decolonization. How can we change that? How can a law come about on that issue? How? Unless we, in our mind, change it in the law, in the legislation, that, okay, this is what we need to bring, and this is what we need to change. Then only the changes will come about. So it has to be from the mindset of the people who are making the laws.
No, I'll tell you this
They have to
interesting,
change
Preeti,
those
very
laws.
interesting. You picked up a very interesting thing, because when today in our country, we have a law on conciliation. It's called conciliation, and we were much ahead of our times. In 1996, we got that law. The UNCITRAL was using the word conciliation at that time. That law is on mediation, because mediation today is defined in the Singapore Convention also. UNCITRAL has clarified that we were using the word conciliation, now we're using mediation. So we have the best law on mediation. Have a look at it. It's a totally decolonized thing. Parties decide whom
Okay.
they want as mediators. Process totally flexible the way it has to be done. The good part, without prejudice, protected, confidentiality protected by law all over the country. So it's not like
And
the
you're
you
talking about India, or you're talking about
India, India,
Singapore?
India
Uh,
is we have the best law
Okay.
today on
My
mediation.
problem with India is I'm an Indian
That's your problem with India?
originally. My problem with India is everything is very good. We have beautiful laws, we have beautiful minds of the people. There's no enforcement.
No, no, it's on the other end now. What has happened here is that there are some people, I'm saying vested interests. I'm saying vested interests. They have gone around and told everyone, being the government and the legislature and everyone, that there is no law on mediation. They confuse them, and those people don't have time to get into it. Then on the other end, our chief justice also, maybe not the chief, not the current one, the one who they formed a committee on drafting a law on mediation, totally confused whether we have a law also today or not. All they had to do was, we have the best law. If you have some problem with the word conciliation, and can you, I'm saying that conciliation, I keep telling people that that word is required separately from mediation, and I explain why. Because there are two processes. Either the court system, you have arbitration where people go to, and they have come to mediation. Now if you are in an arbitration and you want to stay in the arbitration, but still go for a process where you're trying to settle the matter and come back to the arbitrator to pass a consent award, so you go for mediation. But if you want to go out of the arbitration and you want to settle the matter, and like I was telling you, the law that we have is so good that that settlement agreement of yours is as good as a court decree. You don't have to go to anyone, no endorsement by any court or nothing, because you can understand the size of a country. If every settlement agreement has to go to a court, where are you and sitting in a village in some corner of the country has to go to a court, and then you get involved with a lawyer, you are going to get, I mean, whatever happens to you. So we have the best law there, so that also not required. So you have two processes available to you: stay in the arbitration, go for mediation, which is the word used here in our arbitration act. This is Arbitration Conciliation Act. In arbitration part, it says that the parties can try to settle the matters through mediation, conciliation, or any other method, which was so nice, so much before their time. Today we are talking about MEDAB. So much before the time that you go stay in the arbitration, go for mediation, come back to the arbitrator, passes the consent award, go out into conciliation. You don't have to come back to the arbitrator, because that settlement agreement is as good as a consent award, which is as good as a court decree. So far ahead, but here people did not, still don't understand these as. Same thing with the court system. We have a civil procedure code. There is a section there that mediation, conciliation, arbitration. Again, the same thing. If you want to stay in the court system, you want to go for mediation, which is settle the matter and come back to the court to pass a decree, it is mediation. You want to go out of the court, go for conciliation, that settlement is as good as a court decree. You don't have to come back to the court. Such a perfect structure which is available to us today. I'm saying vested interest or people don't understand, or they don't want to understand. The bill that was put into parliament, luckily today it's not been passed. It was sent back to the government to make the changes, because there was a standing committee which was formed. It gave its recommendation, not looked at the entirety of the whole thing, but on certain elements, because they tried to call it pre-litigation mediation to be mandatory. First of all, I don't even understand what is pre-litigation mediation. Are you saying when I'm going to a mediation, at that time I have decided I will go for litigation? I am into a mediation.
Yeah.
I can move into various directions after the mediation. Litigation is not my only option. This is again the whole colonized mindset that everything comes to courts. Let's please get over that. So that pre-litigation by itself is a terminology, is a colonized terminology. I have options. I can
I
go for,
agree. I
yeah.
agree.
So that
Yeah, I
one
agree.
aspect, and then try to make it, if you make it mandatory in a country of 1.4 billion people, where are those? That means you created a layer before the litigation where a person has to go for mediation. And first of all, you want to at some point say that, luckily in that law also, they could appoint whoever they want as a mediator. Luckily that part stayed, but they wanted to start regulating institutions, and which I go and say that institution is just a place which gives the infrastructure. The mediator is someone who is totally independent as a mediator. Only mediators mediate, not the institutions. So you want to regulate that. In our country, law firms are not regulated. There's nothing to regulate law firms who are providing
That's
service in
sad.
their own names. The law firm provides, it goes out. There is no law to support it. Our law is, us as advocates are the ones who are enrolled in the bar. We are the ones who are regulated. The law firm is not regulated. But in this case, you want to regulate a institution which is only providing infrastructure and only creating a panel. You want to regulate that. That's how the whole concept of, we can't touch lawyers, we can't touch courts. Everything else we will look at. So, I mean, it's all, that whole colonized mindset is so seeped in, so seeped in. I
It
don't
is.
even
It
know.
is. It
I,
is.
I don't
It
even know
is.
whether we move towards decolonization.
No, we haven't. Unless the law that we are still using that dates back to even 1935, if we have those laws still, how can you change?
Preeti, let me tell you, our Indian Penal Code. What year is our Indian Penal Code? Any idea?
No,
Any guess? Just one guess, then I'll tell you.
1935.
1860.
No,
Yes,
I still advanced.
1860. Yes, 1860. You continuing a law which the colonizer gave you because it works for you, because you can put anyone behind in a jail which the colonizer gave you. A law. I mean, that whole, no one wants to do our civil procedure code. A guess. Okay, now that you looked at 1860, okay, it's not 1860, but it's 1908. We are in
Wow.
2022. You're keeping a civil procedure code which the colonizer wanted to give you, because it wanted to show you that we have a legal system and judiciary and everything, but within it create such discretion that whom they can put in, who they can release, everything totally for themselves. I mean, it just has to, that whole
Yeah,
decolonization
yeah,
process. When does it
yeah.
start? I don't know. No,
Yeah,
but our
the
government.
whole concept,
But
the
Preeti,
whole
let me know.
concept of authority and subordinate.
Yeah.
Where is that from? It's the same thing. You're not getting rid of it. I am the authority, you are the subordinate. It's there in every way, in every walk of life. Where you work, it's the same thing. In the family, it's the same thing. The man, I'm sorry, a man is authority, the woman is subordinate. It still exists. There's no change.
Exactly. So that's what
The
I'm saying, that
patriarchal system, same
it's
thing.
it's a
It's been
total
trickled
mindset,
down from top.
which is, for like you said, it's a larger aspect of society in general which needs to be addressed, and a lot of work has to happen there. And dispute resolution and mediation is, of course, just one small part. I'm calling it a small
One
part of
part
it.
of it.
But I'm
Yeah.
saying, look, in terms of steps taken, at least this government of ours, of course, in it, I mean, this is the second term of theirs. In the first term itself, I think about 1,500 laws were repealed. 1,500 laws had been lying on paper, which uh, basically colonial concept. Some of them were absurd, and we were still using language of the colonizer. It still stayed on the book. I mean, decolonizing, and today after 75 years, I mean, imagine that many years of independence, you are have to repeal those laws. How much entrenched is the colonization into our system?
It is. I agree with you, including in the education system, the things that we have in the books what the students are studying
Which I
is
think, which
still,
again, yeah, which again, this government is working on that aspect and changing those things. Because look, it's as simple. History is what you create for the children. You say this is history and take it in whatever direction you want. So that's one way. Be it any government or the colonizer, that's what their way of conditioning your mind. So that is something that, of course, is being changed to give them a different concept. Now, whether that is the concept of history, larger history, I also won't get into that, because that's, I mean, those are for other historians to get into. I'm not getting to that. But I'm just saying that at least some steps are being taken to change things. The problem is that no one wanted change. We were living through a status quo system in our country, that just keep status quo. If you can keep status quo, you can have no problems because you did not do anything. So that changed, I think, with this government coming in. I think they were changing things. There will be, obviously, there will be both sides to it. People will criticize change, but at least something is happening, something is moving, which was not happening over years.
yeah,
So I think,
the thing comes up is changing to what?
yeah,
Uh, yeah.
the main thing is at least,
This is very interesting. To me, this topic is if we want to make any changes in this topic, decolonization, colonization, we can work towards it, but it is like emptying an ocean with a thimble.
yeah.
It's going to take time.
Yeah, but for my
And
yeah, we have what we have to do is for my end, we have to stay positive, and we have to look at steps that we can take. For me, it's the grassroots activity which I'm starting, which I've said in the World Mediation Circle part of it, and mediation circles. Let's start with schools and communities. Start creating that atmosphere. The concept is that the divide and rule that the colonizer brought in, you brought differences into communities. That was your job. That's what you did. How do you rule if you don't create
yeah,
differences?
yeah,
So you did
yeah.
that. So now, the role, one is mediation, the other is the role of mediators. So I am
Yeah.
looking at the role of mediators. For me, mediators are those with the mediator mindset. Okay, so there's no concept of qualification and all. It's the mediator mindset, and communities will tell you who those people are, and they will have a role to first. Now I'm looking at it as the role of bringing communities themselves together. I think that by
Community is the
itself,
main way to start. I would
yeah,
start with the communities,
yeah. So
not
that's
not just schools, because schools have a lot of things
no, no,
involved. The
there
state has
also.
to get involved.
No, and what I'm
Yeah.
seeing is that in children itself, that whole colonized mindset comes in very early. That authority figure concept comes in very
Oh yeah.
early,
Oh yeah.
very early. It's
Oh
like
yeah. Oh
amazing
yeah.
how
Oh
young
yeah.
they start thinking. This is someone on one of my shows. This person was there, and he's from Nigeria. His son walked in, and I keep repeating this every time to tell people how much that colonized thing has come in. He walks in. I ask children whenever that, who's that person in your school who helps people resolve their dispute? Would you help? I asked him. He said, I will not help if my friends are fighting. Why? Because the teacher will not like it. So that is how much he was 7, 8 years old. And
Yeah.
imagine at that age, it has gone into his mind that there is an authority figure who decides, who resolves
E-
disputes that early.
Exactly. I have a student who's training under me, and I was surprised to see he's from India. So I was surprised to see, unless I say, yeah, I'm finished, you can leave, he wouldn't leave the room. I'm like, why are you like that?
Exactly. That's what
I'm
you.
not your authority. We are
That's what I'm
learning
saying.
from each other.
That's what I'm saying. That this thing gets
Like something
seeps
like
in
a
so early.
dismissal.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
So
bad.
that's why schools, that's why I feel that we need to get in there, of course, where it has to be. I'm not saying that it is a school doing it, because like you said, schools definitely, I mean, there might be their issues, whether you can do this, whether it fits into their understanding. Let children do it themselves separately. Everything doesn't have to happen. I mean, of course, there will be people who are studying in schools. Maybe they can create their own environment outside. So these are things. This is a work in progress, like I say. So
It
this
is.
is these are steps that we will take.
Yeah.
So so Preeti, I think I think you were getting late. You
Yeah.
were to
Yeah.
go
I'm
somewhere. So
looking at the watch. Yeah.
you need to conclude on concluding remark that you want to give, and then we'll close it.
Uh, this is a very interesting, a very close to my heart topic. I would love to go on and on and on about it, and find the list of things to on colonization and decolonization. And if there's anything we can do together to bring this change, I will be happily participate in that. So
Perfect.
thank you for providing me with this platform, Vikram, and good luck with your program project.
Thank you very much, Preeti, to be part of it. And of course, we'll be doing things together. There's lots of work to be done. So definitely. So thank you very much. And